budgets. We're cutting budgets for, Linda Mama, budgets in the health sector. Is the president in touch with what's going on at home?
First of all, you have to appreciate where we've come from. And I think this is a conversation we've had for a very long time. But then looking at the Outlook paper #1, it says that the economy has actually grown very fast. As in, this is the most, in 5 years, this is actually the, I'm lacking the word to actually use in between there. But what I actually just wanted to actually call out was that #1, TSC is an independent body in the constitution. That is, the problem of JSS is one, TSC and Parliament should be able to sort very fast. Because we've been around this for a very long time. Of course, we've had a problem on how to onboard the CBC curriculum. So these are teething problems. And I hope that TSC will actually rush through, and rather than threaten teachers and everything else, all of us actually know exactly what is happening. And the people at TSC should actually open up their doors, engage Parliament more, have this conversation and take care of that.
It's TSC, it's not a budgetary issue. No, let's stick to education.
I just want to move on very fast.
In the finance bill, the budget has been cut.
I want to move on, and I'm saying, have we dealt with that completely?
Have we?
Have we? No. The finance bill is actually out, is actually for public participation as we speak. And we are not saying that that actually is actually taken care of. So that is something that, for me, is not warranting all these headlines I've actually seen. This is something TSC and Parliament should be able to deal with the ministry.
For over 2 weeks.
But then I want to move to Linda Mama, because you see, if you run with these sensationalist lines, you actually lose the point. It is a single story.
Education principal secretary
it is a single story.
Assuring parents that learning is going on despite
and yes, it is. And yes, it is.
How is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's actually going on.
There's only 2 JSS
Unfortunately, there is no teacher on this particular panel, but I'll tell you it is. There are parents here who have got their children in school, and their children reported yesterday and their children went to school.
They reported and are attending school, but are they learning in the class?
Well, if probably, I don't know if any of you has got a JSS child, but I will tell you, they learned. And when the principal teacher, yes, they did.
No.
And then, let me go to Linda.
No.
You cannot. Wait, can I ask a question?
Because who Maliba sits and decides, it's just a proposal. Let's propose to cut a huge chunk of the education.
That's what I'm telling you.
Why are you fighting CBC?
That's what I'm telling you. When you talk about
why are you fighting
no one is fighting CBC.
Yeah.
Those are financial constraints that we have as a country, and we have got a Parliament and TSC that can deal with that. And they are dealing with it.
Fund it, give the teachers.
Then, why are you running away from Linda Mama?
We keep speaking about financial constraints.
No, we're going to Linda Mama.
Financial constraints,
but we spoke about it. I am responding to that, and you cannot allow me to actually move to Linda Mama.
Here, let me ask this one question before you move on. And the government keeps talking about financial constraints. Yesterday, we had a special meeting, a mediation meeting to iron out the issue of division of revenue bill among counties and whatnot. And we had one of the Senate members say, if indeed the economy is growing and has grown by 10%, then why are you not increasing allocations to these key documents?
Who is that senator who asked that question? Who is that senator?
State House advisors to the president are consuming
do I allow me to respond, or do I allow you guys to discuss amongst yourselves?
No money for GSS.
So you asked, who is that senator who asked that particular question? And that speaks to the level of elections that we do. Because if you had any legislative understanding at that particular point, he will know exactly where we have moved, why we are where we are, because Parliament, and I'm talking about Parliament both at national and even at county level, Parliament is no longer a late endorser to budget making process. Parliament is a budget making body. So if you find a senator asking a headless question like that, then it means he doesn't know his work, he's not done his homework. He will know when we're talking about economic growth, what does it really mean? What are the metrics in play here?
Budget estimates are presented by the government.
I am still responding. Budget is a function of the government of the day. Yet,
so we are reacting to budget estimates. Parliament has not questioned.
No, his question is not the question you asked. I am responding to the question you put in. Parliament does not respond. We're talking about Parliament is a budget making body. No one here can dispute that. It's a fact. And I do not expect the question. Yes. Constitutionally, practically, and everything, because our budget is legislated in the first place. Before these budget estimates we're talking about here are here outside for the two of us to actually talk, or rather the all of us here to talk about it. It has been in Parliament 3 times. None of us has got the capacity like the PBO. When we talk about PBO, I'm talking about the Parliamentary Budget Office. They have got top-range economists, people who understand budget, to break it down for parliamentarians. If parliamentarians cannot make use of the PBO, then what will the rest of us be doing other than bickering the way we are doing now? Can you allow me to talk about Linda Mama, please?
One last question, Maliba, before you move on, because you seem to be very prepared with Linda Mama.
No, as in he raised it.
I've had
and the danger of a single story
on this platform say yes, they have the mandate of going through, the budget policy statement. However, they have admitted on this very show that they do not have the independence to fight some of these
I do not know when you talk about members of parliament. That is a vague statement because
have
who? They have names.
Walk out of
they have names
during the debate for the last.
It is their right to do how they do it, but I'm telling you, they have names. We have got members of parliament doing their work in parliament. Let us not really have this bandwagon way of going around this. So on Linda Mama, let's be real here, that we have changed the way we do our health. Right? So we are going to the social health, SHIF, the SHIF platform. A number of the things that were being taken care of under Linda Mama, they knew SHIF platform and way of doing things is taking care of it. So it's not being removed. We are simply restructuring it. So when we run around with these sensationalist lines and going around so that then we spike Kenyans and then ensure that they go out there and they make noise, we are selling one side of the story, which is unfair. Can we tell balanced stories? At least that for the media is something that we must do. I would allow Mwakesi to run with that particular line. No. Because probably he's a former Kenya Kwanza guy who's not so happy with Kenya Kwanza for whatever reason. But for the media, I expect that the media should be able to balance out the story.
That story actually is on the front page of the Daily Nation at the bottom there. How you will benefit under the new health plan, and expectant mothers will get 10,000 shillings delivery fee.
Let us be practical, because this is the Kenya Kwanza administration trying to be smart and leaving all of Kenyans in purgatory, where they don't know what is real and what is not.
What is purgatory?
Now, let me tell you one other thing. The one thing that we are not clear about at this particular point is when SHIF will actually be activated. So until then, Kenyans had one safety net, that there is a Linda Mama program that will take care of you once you are giving birth in hospital. Now, we do not even know when people are being onboarded into SHIF. Right now, if you go into anything, if you go to any hospital, and I'm saying this because I have actually taken a patient to hospital recently, and I can tell you, you take someone there, NHIF tells you, we can only do inpatient. We cannot do anything outpatient, we cannot do anything for, and somebody is already paid up. So here, people are sitting in limbo, not knowing exactly what is happening with the national insurance issue. And then there's a program which people had a safety net. We all knew that for the next 1 year, we will get some money out of it. Then they go and cut it. That is why we're asking questions. We're asking questions because this administration is the one that presents this budget estimates to Bunge. Bunge does not come up with these estimates. So we then, why is this administration such that it just creates the most ludicrous proposals, presents them to Parliament, makes Kenyans make noise, and then come and tell us it was not us, it was Bunge that passed it. No, you are the ones who set the trap to begin with. You are the ones who set up and said, I am going to cut this amount of money to farmers, I'm going to cut this amount of money for teachers, I'm going to cut all these things, present them to Bunge, and then afterwards Maliba comes back here and says, why are you blaming the Kenya Kwanza administration? You should blame Parliament.
Let me give you an example. As per the budget estimates, we reduced the education budget from 659 billion to 654 billion. That's a 35 billion cut. But we increased State House budget from 299 billion to 351 billion, which is 52 billion. So just that one example.
How is that ludicrous?
Yeah.
You throw around figures.
We're not throwing around figures.
You know, all of these people talking here. I'll tell you, Michelle, as a matter of fact.
Can I finish? I was speaking.
Can
I finish? Yeah. I'm not just throwing around figures. These are not figures I just went and collected somewhere. These are figures presented in the budget estimates by National Treasury, which is the National Executive, which is government. And these are the figures they present to Parliament through the Budget and Appropriations Committee to deliberate and discuss and come up with, you know, the final estimates for the final budgets. So it's not figures that I made up in the air.
Changes in Parliament.
And the reason,
Michelle, this is a question I wanted to ask.
The reason,
she's raising issues that I can actually intervene and help her.
The reason I am raising this issue is because any Kenyan, me and any other Kenyan, maybe except Maliba, expects that we will prioritize education. why would we underfund education? So many programs on education, including the school feeding program, capitation, and cut it by 35 billion. But on the other hand, increase State House budgetary allocation by 52 billion.
Maliba, maybe you can answer that.
It speaks to our priorities being disorganized.
Michelle, if we come here in the morning on this very important platform and make such like arguments, we do not do justice to the people who watch us. Number one, they are lying. Wait, I am moving. You actually intervened without waiting for me to actually execute the point. This is the point. Number one, we have got budget lines. When she throws about what has been reduced, she has not pointed out which lines specifically were done away with and are necessary. In budget lines, we have got some things that are one-off. Like, for example, last year and the previous year, we were still at the foundational level of CBC. So there were other things that were one-off.
Like
so once they have been done, once some of those things have been done, you do not have it recurring. So you cannot use that as an excuse to call something
what about
ludicrous.
the school feeding program?
Secondly, the school feeding program. What was the rationale? Unfortunately, for a lot of people, including members of parliament, and this is the sad part about the conversation about the finance bill, is that everybody is running with the 136 document proposal with a few things. And no one, for example, has looked at the budget policy statement, especially those who come to give comment. The commentator, for example, it behooves us to come here and give what looks like a qualified opinion when we have not looked at the budget policy statement. Have we looked, even done a comparison between the two? I'll give you an example. So I'm just telling you. So when you come in here and you make this simplistic comparison, you have not looked at the budget lines. For example, has anyone been fired? Has a school been closed because this budget has been, there has been a reduction of about 4 billion shillings? That's not true. And that's what, so what was the budget line? What was this budget line that was actually done away with, for example? And I've told you that in a budget, there are some one-off or some of them that are periodic.
So
secondly, he's talking a lot.
You know, talking emotions is not something.
But you're saying nothing.
You are being emotional yourself.
Look at them.
You are being emotional.
They literally want to swallow me. Can you tell them to tone down their passion?
What happened to keep projects?
You
like
know,
he's
simply tell us.
Maliba is literally telling us.
So silent.
Maliba is literally telling us.
Silent.
Forget at what Vivian has said.
I wanted 54 billion
into state houses because we have finished building all the schools that are required in Kenya. Education sector is fine. Everything is okay.
That is reactionary.
No, that is what you're saying in essence.
Vivian quoted numbers. Vivian quoted numbers. Vivian quoted numbers, and I said, can she go further and say we have not prioritized according to her argument, because this budget line was done away with and then we took this money elsewhere. She has not done that.
The money has been taken.
I agree with Vivian Maliba that you are being a bit evasive.
No. I asked a question that no one has responded. It's a quantitative question. She quoted numbers. She quoted numbers, and I'm saying, can she point out the budget lines that are needed now that we've done away with?
So she's not done that. Let me do that. Let me ask a question. And it goes back to the question I asked. Does the Kenya Kwanza government have a problem with prioritization?
Yes.
Because the school feeding program has been scrapped. The government has said there is no money for the school feeding program, but we're adding money to State House.
Okay.
You are catching Linda Mama.
You know the school feeding program. How many schools have been benefiting from it?
I wouldn't have the figures, but
you wouldn't have the figures, but you are asking me a question about it.
As a result of the school.
I'm asking you.
Can you say it here so that we know that you know?
Which type of school?
Tell us the number so that we know you know.
School attendance rate actually dropped.
There is no one who is
mad in Treasury. So that we know you know.
There is no mad person at Treasury. Can I answer? So will you allow me to respond?
Please do.
If you guys want a shouting match, I can actually stand on top of this table and shout like the rest of you. It is you people. Your passion is so loud, I can't hear your points.
We must
wind up.
But I'm saying,
not an important
their passion is so loud I can't hear their points. Can they raise their points and not raise their volume?
I asked a question.
Now, so the point is, this is what I'm saying, that there is no mad person at Treasury who makes a decision without looking at consequence. Number one, there are CSOs that are taking care of school feeding programs. There are county governments that are actually taking care of that, and they have realized by and large that even the schools that are actually doing that, we take care of the economy. Once it works up, the parents can actually take care of that. So when you talk about the school feeding program, you run with one line, you are not looking at the other side. That's what I'm saying. If you look at the 136 pages of the finance bill, the proposed finance bill, if you look at it alone, you are forgetting that there are over 5,000 pages of other attendant laws that law is actually amending. So when you run with a few things, especially done by a few politicians who want to
the counties will
socialize it, we are saying that there are alternatives to it. Number one, both by non-government, the CSO sector, and county government, and even the family.
CSO sector is not government.
No one is mad. So when we talk about prioritization, let us not sensationalize stories. If we are going to do justice for public participation, just remember that Michelle, you are supposed to be the one asking me questions. Everybody is asking. So you also have to allow me to answer questions from these people. So this is the point.
You have not answered many of the
I
questions.
have answered questions because you don't allow.
Nobody has asked you
Just calm down your passion
just being
and
emotional.
let me raise the point.
Let's
So for Linda Mama, I have actually told you, for example, the SHIF takes care of elements that Linda Mama was doing. A part of them, that is why we've actually brought down, because that is prioritization
And
again.
he asks, when will it be implemented? And
It's
between
already
now and
underway.
then, where are
It's
women going to
underway.
get
He
jobs?
reads newspapers. It's underway.
Listen,
We
Michelle.
must find out, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Makesi, let's have your final comments.
My final comments are this. I think what we have come out to in the end is to say that this administration, its priorities and how it prioritizes issues for Kenyans is completely warped. It is completely upside down. We have a government that talks about fighting diabetes by increasing the price of wheat for Kenyans. We have a government that is saying that for you to drive your car, we have to tax you. It has so many things that are not in concurrence or coherence with each other. And then at the same time, all these social safety nets that have been put in place so that to help Kenyans to at least live their lives comfortably, like Linda Mama, like making sure that children go to school and there's a school feeding program. They are cutting them. So where are you expecting this Kenyan to survive? My call to this administration, and not a question to Maliba, my call to this administration is that for the first time in the next coming financial year, because clearly with the budget estimates you've given us and the financial bill, you have no interest of Kenyans. So in the next financial year, please try and think about Kenyans, because if you do not think about Kenyans in the next financial year, I guarantee President Ruto, if he's going to be listening to people like Maliba explaining things to him, he is going to fail and he's going to not have a second term. If he wants a second term, he needs to start listening to Kenyans, paying attention to the way Kenyans are crying. Kenyans don't have money. Kenyans are suffering. Kenyans are stifled by every single tax that is being loaded on them every single day. And we must say no to an administration that is constantly making us go through this kind of trauma and suffering.
All right, Vivian, briefly, your closing comments.
For me, I just want to share a quote by Martin Luther King. He said, "Every man of humane convictions must decide on the protest that best suits his convictions, but we must all protest." This government, the mandate they have is because the people have ceded that mandate to the government to be able to run our affairs, manage our resources, handle our revenues, collect our taxes, right? If the government is going to spend our money, our resources collectively on things as Kenyans we do not deem as important, like 800 million being allocated to the deputy president for, expenditure, confidential expenditure, then we are not going to be for it. The way I see it, Kenyans have three choices. Either these things we fight it legally through the courts, or lobby our elected representatives, our MPs, whether collectively or individually, to make sure that they vote against these punitive taxes. If those won't work, then we must go through a revolution.
All right, we must
go through.
We must go through. Maliba, 30 seconds.
Protests.
Very briefly, 30 seconds. Please wind up.
You know that. Number one, I'd like to say this. I want to tell President William Ruto that Stephen Makesi here says that if you want a second term, you talk to him. It's a clear call. Please listen up. He's a man known to you. You might actually just drop that call. It will be important. Secondly, to the people who listen and those who come here to actually speak, good English, sophistry, and passion is not commentariat and is not public participation. That when we come in here, we must actually do justice to public participation. Finally, when you look at the finance bill, there are a few mistakes that the government side must actually also take responsibility for. Number one, Treasury needs to actually be doing a popular version to this and an explainer to this, because people sometimes looking at that bill, today is 136 pages, even members of parliament, a number of members of parliament are struggling to actually be able to explain it. So they wait for a few guys to throw lines here and they run with it. So National Treasury, a challenge to you, please ensure that there is always a popular version, the same way we had with the Constitution 2010. People in parliament, for example, the Parliamentary Budget Office, please also ensure that when you are doing policy advocacy, communicating policy and doing that, there's also need to make it easier, even for members of parliament to be able to run with it, to understand, so that then we do not have bickering where there is none and it's not necessary. I need to actually say this, it's important, Michelle, on a few things that people have run with. The taxes on bread as actually being spoken about, no one has imposed. Bread is zero rated, as it were. Okay. So normally what happens is that the suppliers normally ask for tax refunds, and that is where we pay a lot of money, specifically on bread and milk. Okay, we will have that explanation. We're completely out of time, Mariba. Thank you. Many thanks, Mariba. That is Arnold Mariba, is UDA, a strategic communications advisor. We're out of time, Mariba. We've also been speaking to communications and governance affairs expert Vivian Ta, as well as governance expert Stephen Mwakesi. Gentlemen and ladies, many thanks for being here. We're completely out of time. And thank you for watching this morning and being part of this conversation on the Week in Review. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. Good morning.
Mgenge true legend. Skiza.